Let's hope everyone can see that. All right. All right, the link to the presentation is in the chat and it's also on the screen. I'm excited to be with you today. I am Leanne Holmes. I am one of the NC-SIS consultants with the DPI. And with me, we have several of our team members here today. So we are glad that you are here, and I'm excited about the content that we're going to talk about in this session. And so I'm going to wait just a minute or so. I still have a couple that's getting in, and I will say if you want to go ahead and log into your production site, or if you don't have all the tool rights, you're going to need data export and filter designer. So if you don't have data export or filter designer, I do have a training site that you can use. And so on the second slide of the presentation, there is a training site with some username and passwords. So you are more than welcome to use that training site if you want to play along. But you can be in your production site also, because we're not changing data. We are just pulling and aggregating data today. So feel free. And those of you that are just joining the session, there is a link in our chat to the presentation. And if you have questions, we do have a question document. So feel free to add your questions to that document and we will try to answer those for you. Okay, so the agenda for the session today is we are going to talk about some priority metrics. We're going to locate and prepare some assessment data in Infinite Campus. We are going to look at the assessment dashboard briefly in Insights. We are going to build an assessment ad hoc. We are going to aggregate data using our cube analysis, and I'm going to talk to you about some additional ideas with assessment data that you could possibly do to make the work easier as you're looking at data. So I have a lot on the agenda, so let's go ahead and get to it. This is intended, if you can and you want to work along, I have set it up that way so that we can sort of build these together. So again, if you need a training site, there is a training site here with username and passwords. I am going to check that real quickly because it was down this morning, but the training site is up. Okay. All right. I do want to throw this in. The problem-solving model crosswalk for MTSS is that you identify the problem, you analyze the problem, you implement a plan, and you plan evaluation. And so I wanted to point out that at pretty much every step, there's either a collection of data or somehow that you're going to use the data. And so data is an extremely important part of the work that we do in education, because we are always wanting to look at our data, see if we can recognize if we have issues with core instruction, if students need interventions put in place, and just basically to look at the entire data story. And part of the data story is looking at the assessment data that is in Infinite Campus. And also I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some other assessment data that you could possibly have within the system if you wanted that to use in some of your data analysis protocols. So as we're going through this, and again, I know we still have several that are joining, but I wanted to ask a question, and I wanted you to go to this link in the presentation. And the question that I wanted to ask is, what are some key metrics that should be considered when analyzing assessment data? So what are some metrics that you're looking at when you're looking at assessment data? What are some metrics that you're considering when you're doing that? And so if you want to, you can go straight to just click the link, and the link is going to take you to a PO Everywhere. And you can also change your name, add a screen name. but I'd like for you to type in your response on this page. So I'm going to give you about a couple of minutes to do that. So those of you that are just joining, I am going to put the link. I'm going to put the link in the chat. So if you're just joining, please click the link and add something to our Wordle. I know it's a Friday and I'm having you do something. Again, we'll give you about 2 minutes for that. Thank you. All right, about another 30 seconds. Thank you for responding. Okay. So as you can see, the one that stands out the most, of course, is the demographics, because we're always wanting to look at our different demographic areas. I do like the growth over time. And I'm going to show you a tool today to show you how that you might want to pull that and take a look at that. Definitely by grade levels, summative and enforcement, summative and formative, your scale score, your distributions of your scores. I think you're going to see some of the tools today we can use within Infinite Campus, and possibly some of these tools will help you build your data stories that you can use within your at your school level and in your PLCs. Those of you that are on this call, if you know me, you know that I absolutely love being able to use data at the PLC level and helping teachers look at data and doing some analysis on that. Okay, thank you again for responding. So the second slide is really just some key points of what you had on the Wordle, but we are definitely looking at overall achievement. And when you're looking at overall achievement, one thing that you're looking at is it a core instruction issue? So are you having some issues with the core instruction? I mean, if you've got 60% that is low performing, I mean, what's the reason for that? You might have to dig a little deeper and see. What is the student's growth over time? What is the looking at the gap analysis, look at how this group did compared to this group, look at how the students used to do in one grade level as opposed to another grade level. And of course, the subgroup performance is one that we saw a lot. All right, so I am excited to share with you, and I'm going to sort of jump back and forth between the presentation and the actual site that we're using. But I do want to point out that within Infinite Campus, if you go to student information and assessments, you will actually see students that are the scores that are uploaded by the state are your ELCs, your EOGs, your ACT, along with your subtests of those ACTs, your BOG3 reading, your WIDA scores, your Read to Achieve. And then I added something in here that you may not you may not have used before. So I am going to change to a different screen. And I want to show you as I pull up a student, and let me get my students. Right, so I have a student here, and to get to their test scores, their assessments, I'm going to go to student information and assessments. So now this is a wonderful screen to look at. And by the way, I am not violating FERPA. This is all scrambled data. Even the test scores that have been uploaded are scrambled data. But as I'm looking at this, I can see that anything that has a lock are scores that have been uploaded by the state. And so when I'm looking at this, I can click and I understand, and I click on their grade 4 reading, EOG. And I can see their performance level. I can see their scale score. I can also see their testing grade. I can see their, the dates and percentiles and all that good stuff. But if you notice on this screen also, I have entered and uploaded some formative assessments, all right? And so when I'm looking at these formative assessment scores, notice that I have added in their M-class scores, their DIBELS, which is and I've done their BOI, EOI, MOI, and this one's for grade 1, 2, 3, and 4. And these are scores that I actually did at a district level. So if you notice, these are not, they don't have a lock on them. It means that they are assessment scores that I put in. Now I know that DIBELS has a really good back end that you would use to look at your interventions that you need to do to pull some data there. The value of putting formative assessments within the system is that you also can do real quickly that comparison. And if you notice that I'm at a middle school, and so at this middle school, if I've got a student that is struggling in reading, I could go back. I may not have access to their M-class from when they were in first, second, third grade, but I could go back and I could take a look at their historical data and be able to see that historical data. So this is not a class on how to upload that, but I want you to just know that that is a way that it can be put into the system, and it can be used as some of the formative assessments that we're talking about. Okay. Now, as I go back into this and I take a look, the way that you would upload those formative assessments, and I just gave you an example of this, but the formative assessments can be uploaded through what's called the Assessment Center. And so you would go to Student Information, Assessment Administration, and the Assessment Center. Also on this slide, I gave you a link out to Infinite Campus, and Infinite Campus will explain that assessment center. But if you need more help with that, you can reach out to your NC-SIS consultant, and they can help you with possibly uploading some of those formative assessments. The districts that I have been working with to do this, I have told them that it is real important that you upload formative assessments that are possibly done district-wide. So for example, I know some have access. I have M-class here, so we know M-class is a statewide assessment, but I also have some districts that use iReady, some districts that use other programs, some districts that do some formative assessments in SchoolNet, and they do them district-wide. Can those scores be uploaded into Infinite Campus for a side-by-side comparison? Yes, they can. So that's just an idea for you if you're interested in that. But we're going to look today at mostly aggregating data that's already in the system. I will show you just a little bit with the M-class data that I have uploaded as a test data. Okay, so let's talk about insights and looking at assessment data through insights. Now, I absolutely love insights because insights will give you an opportunity to look at your data in real time. But as you are looking at your data in insights in real time, you're going to realize that this part of insights will not aggregate your testing data. It will aggregate some of your testing data, but it will not aggregate your EOGs, your EOCs through this dashboard. So again, I love Insights because it's real-time data. It aggregates your WIDA scores quite nicely. So if I click on this and I want to load and look in at my WIDA, my screener scores, I can look at all of my different screener scores. I can go to my student assessment by proficiencies, and it's going to show me my student assessments by proficiencies if I choose to do that. So my WIDA scores are in the system. They're in the fields that Insights uses so that you can aggregate the data. But for us that want to do the EOG data, that does not work. Because if I try to change and add in, notice that it's going to look like it's going to show, but it's not there. And so if I try to change and add in my EOGs, EOCs, it will just give you a blank screen. So the question is, how do we aggregate that assessment data? And so what I've done in the presentation is I have taken you through step by step the way that you would aggregate that data. And so when you are aggregating it in Infinite Campus, the first thing that you're going to do, and we're going to come back and do this, but the first thing you're going to do is you're going to build an ad hoc that uses those assessments fields. So now what I've done in the presentation is I have pulled out the assessment fields that you will need. And those assessment fields are here in this area. See where it says test detail? Those are your assessment fields that you will need. I've also added, because remember in our Wordle, a lot of you put in demographics. You may want grade level, you may want gender. I also added in their absenteeism. So if a student is low performing, what's their absenteeism percentage? How many days have they missed? Are they chronically absent? Also, I added in, if you were in the early warning session earlier, you can also pull in an ad hoc those grad scores and those early warning scores and add them to your dashboards if you choose to. So what I've done is the first thing you're going to do is you're going to build your ad hoc that contains all that assessment data. Okay, so we are going to go do that at this point. And so if you are following along with me, I'm going to show you the fastest way to build that ad hoc. And you can take my screen and look at my screen. Now I have this ad hoc already built, but I am going to build it now so that I can show you how to do it. And I'm going to split my screen so I can see my scores. Okay. Now you can look at your you can look at the presentation, and if you have a split screen, that would help, but I am going to do it here. I'm gonna look at a different device. All right, so to build an ad hoc, you're gonna go to reporting, and I'm gonna go to filter designer. Now, in filter designer, you are going to start with, and I'm gonna try to make this bigger where you can see it. You're going to start with a query wizard, and your data type is going to be student, and you're going to click create. Okay. First thing you need to do is give your query a name. So I'm going to call it student assessment data. Okay. Now, I have given you on that page, I have given you all the fields that you're looking for. So, here is the fastest way to put all the fields on. The first part are your demographics. Now, you might want different demographics than I wanted on mine, but I do always want to start with the student number, and I want their name. However, I am not going to aggregate this by last name and first name. And there's reasons for that. I'm going to actually put on the student's full name. And so what I'm going to do to add their full name, I have to add a function. So I'm going to click on function. And again, if you're doing this with me, I'm trying to create it as you're going. So, and I have pictures of this. but I'm going to call this student's, I'm going to call it full name. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that student's last name, first name together, and you'll understand this later on in the webinar, but I'm going to use what's called concatenate. And under concatenate, under demographics, I'm going to put their last name first, and then I want to put a comma between their last name, space, and I'm going to add that to my formula. So last name, comma, space, and their first name. Now, if you have a student, John Doe, what this would do is it would put Doe, comma, space, John. That's what that formula does. So when I'm going down, I'm going to save it. Okay. Now, we could actually run a test so you could see what that looks like. So if I do a save and test, there is my student, last name, comma, first name. Okay. Now, and then I actually do want, in case I ever want to, I go ahead and throw last name and first name on as fields that I'm going to use. And then now we're going to get, this is why I had you do the world, because I wanted you to think about what fields would you like to aggregate with your test data. So that's part of your data analysis protocol and looking at the different subgroups that you have and the different features of a student. And so I am going to go ahead and throw on their gender. I want to do their grade, and I'm just going down the list of what I gave you, but you may want more things, but I'm going to do gender, grade, and I'm going to do their race, ethnicity. And I'm going to do another field that you're going to want, and it's called active today. And all of this was under your student demographics except for the function. Now, the next part, I'm going to show you how to do real fast instead of having to find the different areas. If you take the fields that I have given you on that and on the presentation, and you just type in absenteeism percentage and do a search, there's field. Now I only have to do this one time. And so when I do this, I am going to look under chronic absenteeism, and I want their absenteeism percentage. Now, if you want to, you could speed this up. I want absenteeism, days absent, chronically absent. I could go back and I could say days absent and hit search and go to the same place under chronic absenteeism and put their days absent. Or since I now know where it's located, I can clear this and I can go under attendance and I can go down to, I can find where it is. There it is, chronic absenteeism, and I can add my other fields if I want to do it that way. Okay, so that's just a fast way to get through your attendance. Now, early warning, I'm going to find this first one, and it's called a grad score. And when I search for the grad score is under student early warning, and there's the grad score. So instead of me having to type in all the other stuff, I'm going to go to student. I'm going to find early warning. You see why I type them in the most. I am missing it. There it is. Okay, so early warning. So when I did early warning, I want the ones that have outcome. So I want their attendance outcome, I want their behavior outcome, their curriculum outcome, and I want their stability outcome. Okay, because that's going to actually give me the number from 50 to 150. Okay, now these are all the fields that I have that from their that I want to aggregate by. So if you have more, then of course you can add more if you choose to. But the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to actually get into the test detailed names. And so your test detail is I'm going to do a first search for name, and that's on your list on that spreadsheet. Excuse me, on that presentation. And it is under assessments. So if you click on assessments and instead of breaking them out here, I'm going to do all tests because I know that I've uploaded some of my own. So I'm going to do all tests and I'm going to choose the name. So what that's going to do is it's going to give you the test that says grade 4 EOG or grade 4 EOC. This is, excuse me, grade 4 EOG, math, grade 4 EOG, ELA. And so this name is the name that is either you've uploaded or the state has given to that score. The next one is going to be, and I'm just going to search for these. It's going to be testing grade. Testing grade. Performance level. So if you're doing this with me, you're probably a lot faster than I am. And then scale score. Now, some of this you may not want in yours. Some of this you may not need the scale score. Raw score, I will say on raw score, I have learned that raw score feeds into the early warning. So if I'm uploading any of my own formative assessments and I can put something in the raw score, then I do. I usually put percentile in that raw score. Okay, and then your assessment type. And if you notice, what I'm doing is I'm taking that list on that presentation and I'm putting them in. Now I'm doing custom too because I uploaded EOY and BOY and MOY MClass data and I put stuff in that custom to field. So and percentile. Now, if you want to put testing district on, then you can. I'm going to leave it off. And I'm also going to leave testing school off, but you may want to put testing school because you might want to aggregate it by the different school. Because if I have any district level people on this webinar, this kind of aggregation you can do at the district level. And so at the district level, you probably want the testing school listed so you can aggregate the different scores by the school. But I'm going to leave those two fields off. Lexile score. Now, the reason I'm doing Lexile score is because if you upload your MClass or you upload your iReady data or other data, most of those testing platforms will give you a Lexile score. So I remember some of my teachers in the lower grades, they like to see what that Lexile score is. And then I'm going to put date taken. And the reason I'm going to put date taken is because if I want to search for my test and I want to pull on all the 8th graders and the last test that they took last year, I could put date taken on and just search by 2024 or I'm sorry, 2025 and have the test data from last year. So that's why I include date taken. Okay. Now, all of these fields, let me say this first. All of these fields are listed in your presentation on this screen. And so you will be able to, you can go, if you were not able to keep up with me during the webinar, you can have that from that screen. Okay. So now we've built our ad hoc. So the next thing that you have to do after you build your ad hoc is we are going to go and we're going to use cube analysis. Now, I have used this quite a bit when I'm teaching, especially with insights. The same concept applies when you're doing cube analysis. Cube analysis is really just a pivot table. And in that pivot table, what you do is you open up cube analysis, you choose your filter, you click cube analysis, click export. When you export it, you are going to get a screen that looks like a pivot, basically setting up a pivot table. Then you're going to add, remove your fields. You're going to select your filters. You're going to adjust your calculations, choose what kind of chart you want, share, and create a template. If you want to come back to this and not have to keep rebuilding it, then you would create a template. Right? So these steps are really the only steps that you have to know in doing in aggregating this assessment data, but these steps are also very similar to what you would do if you were going to build your dashboards using Insights. So what I did was I gave you some pictures here. And on these pictures, you will see that I went through each step. So the first step is you're going to open up Cube Analysis. So choose your filter, open Cube Out, choose Cube Analysis, and click Export. The next thing that you're going to do, you're going to add, remove your fields. So I gave you pictures of that. You're going to select your filter values, and then you're going to adjust your calculation. So if you come back to this like next week and you forgot how I was doing some of this and you want to do your own and play with it, follow these steps because it applies to whether you're doing it Insights or Cube Analysis. And then you're going to choose your chart type. And I always tell everyone, just because you can doesn't mean you should. So you need to make sure that your chart type matches the type of data that you're looking at. And then, of course, you may want to share the data, and there's different ways to share it. And then you're going to create a template if you want to save it. So those are the steps. So the first thing that we're going to do is I gave some tasks. And so in these tasks, I have different things for us to take the data from that ad hoc filter that we just created. And I want us to be able to aggregate it and build our own dashboards based off of that. And so the first task that I have for you to do is I want you to aggregate your data using Cube Analysis, and I want you to answer the question, how many current, and when I put grade there, depending on what grade level you are. So if you're looking at 5th grade, replace grade with 5th. But how many current grade level students, I'm going to say 7th grade students were not proficient on our last EOG in reading. Okay. Now what I did on every one is I gave you a picture of what it looks like. So here is not proficient, green, level 5, level 4, and level 3. I will say, as you're working with testing data, that the further you go back, so if you're looking at a 9th grade student and you're trying to aggregate data all the way back to maybe their 3rd, 4th, and younger than that, just keep in mind that every year, some of the previous years, they didn't always use not proficient level 5, level 4, and level 3. There did used to be a level 1 and a level 2. So just keep that in mind, that you may not, if you see that, it doesn't mean it's bad data. It just means at that time, that's the levels that they applied to the testing scores that were in there. Okay, so now in every slide, what I gave you was what your report filters can look like and what columns you should use, and I also gave you the formula. So let's build this one. Great. All right, so I've got it built. I've got my ad hoc done. I've saved and I've tested it. Okay, so I've saved it. I'm going to now return to my list. Now, to get to Cube Analysis, you are going to go to, in your menu, you're going to go to Reporting. I'm going to go to Data Export. So you're going to click Data Export. And under Data Export, you're going to find the filter that you just created. Okay, so the filter that I just created was my student assessment data webinar. So here's my filter. I'm going to click on it. When you click on your filter, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to choose Cube Analysis. So I'm going to click Cube Analysis and I'm going to click Export. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to open up basically a pivot table view for you with all of your data. Now, I've got quite a bit of data. If you are a larger school, my suggestion is that when you build your assessment data, you might want to build it by grade level to cut down on the data. I think I have like almost 8,000 rows of data in the one that I'm pulling, and you can see it's taking just a few minutes for it to load the data because it has to pull all of that. Now, it will pull faster. I put a lot of fields on mine because I wanted to see the early warning, ethnicity, grades, and stuff like that. Your exports will pull faster if you don't add all of those fields, but I wanted them for for purposes today, so you can see how it looks. And I'm gonna have to wait just a second and let it pull the data. Okay. All right. So now that was step one. Step one, you go to your data export, choose cube analysis, choose your filter, choose cube analysis, and here we are. Now, when you first come into this, if it's small and you can't see your fields, if you click on the left and drag, it's going to show you your fields so that you can see them. Now, on each slide, I gave you a view, but mostly of the columns and mostly of the values, but I also gave you some of the filters. My suggestion is, even if it's not something that you're going to filter by, you may want to put that field in the filter, because when you double click and look at student data, it will give you the information that is on the filter. And now that probably doesn't make sense yet, but let me show you. First thing I want to put on is, in the filter, I'm going to put the student's full name. I am going to put their, I'm going to start basically with the test detail name. So here's my test detail name. And I'm going to put active today, because part of the question was, I want only my active students. So active today, I'm going to pull on. And I'm looking at only my 7th grade students. So I'm going to pull grade 7 over here. So I'm going to pull my student grade because I want to filter by that grade. Now, from your picture, you have a link you have a field that you're going to pull to your column. So I'm going to click on find it. I believe I left that one off. I did. I left off performance level. Okay, let me go back. I'm gonna go back. I'm not gonna repull it because I've got it, but I'm gonna go back and just repull. I'm gonna use one that I did earlier. I left off performance level. My apologies. That will have to wait just a few minutes and let it pull the data. If you left it off, all you have to do is go back to that filter and click edit and add the field in, which will happen to you. I just hate we have to wait again. While I'm waiting, are there any questions? Question, just raise your hand or unmute.
I have a question about the cube analysis.
Yes.
For some of our users, they don't actually have the reporting suite, and they don't have the data export suite. Do you know if we're able to embed the cube analysis URL the way that we can embed the ad hoc reports, so that they can actually still access them?
Yes, that's one of the things I'm going to show you.
Okay.
But as far as tool rights, you might have to turn it on for them to be able to, they can get to the link, but they may have to, you might have to turn on the cube analysis for them to be able to do that.
They'll get the error message for them running the link.
I think it may, but
Okay.
I haven't tested that, so that might be a good thing to test. It sounds like you know about the linking side. Here is the link that you would pull.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah, okay. I just didn't know if you had ever come across that, because for our data managers, they don't have the reporting suite, so we embed all of these ad hoc reports for them.
Yeah.
But for cube analysis, I haven't tried it, so I was just curious. But I'll troubleshoot that if that comes up. But thank you.
Yeah, my gut says I don't know that they will be able to use it without the tool right to it. But
okay.
But if you're giving them the ad hoc, the cube analysis is really just built off of whatever ad hoc they build. So just play with it. I haven't tested that. Good question.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. So with this, I now have it with performance. So my bad. So here's my performance level. So let me go back and let me drag my full name. And the reason, and you'll see a second while I'm dragging full name. I'm going to drag the name of the test. So the testing detail, I want the name. And then I'm going to drag active today. And I'm also going to drag grade, because if you want to look at a specific grade. Okay. Now over here is where you have to put in your performance level. So I'm going to add performance level. And then I'm also going to add, I want the, you're going to look, I didn't put this in my ad hoc, but this field here is automatically added to any that you create. And it's just the person ID. It's similar to student number, but it's a number that Infinite Campus assigns every person within Infinite Campus. And so I like to aggregate by this one. And so I'm going to drag it, except I don't want the sum because it's going to count. I mean, if your ID has 6 digits, it's going to count 6 digits and the sum up everybody's 6-digit person ID. So I'm going to do a count of that. And then I'm going to click apply. Right now, this is not what I want to see. So I'm going to go here to my chart and I'm going to do a graph. Now, remember what I was telling you, that a lot of times tests have different values in their performance, in the performance level. So here are some that were put in at 1, 2, 3, 4. Here are some that I can tell you what these are. These are M-class scores that I added above, add, and below benchmark. And so what I'm going to do is, once I create this, I want to go up here and I'm just going to filter. First question was active students. So if you had any false, that means you had withdrawn students. So you would uncheck false. The next thing is I want their test name, test detail name. So I'm going to check all of these, and I'm more interested in their EOGs. And so I'm going to find their last EOG, and their last EOG is going to be reading. So I'm going to click on 4th grade reading and click apply. And if you want to do it by grade level, I'm just going to look at my 7th graders, and there are my 7th graders. And there is your 4th grade EOG for your 7th graders aggregated. Now, again, I'm working with test data, so you would look at your 6th grade EOG scores for these current 7th graders. But you notice that I have 216 that are not proficient, 16, and if I hover over it, there's 56, and here are 40. So if I was aggregating 7th graders and I'm working with ELA, I would look at their 6th grade and aggregate their 6th grade EOG scores. But the way that I did that was, first thing is open your cube analysis. Second thing is do your pull your fields on. Third is filter. And then 4th is choose the chart that you want. Now this one would probably lend itself pretty well to a different types of bar charts. I personally probably would not do a line chart because it's really just a point in time. But your different bar charts and column charts, it would work well for this. Now, if you like this and this is how you want your data to look, I can also come and I can do a grid of the data. I can export the data, and when I export it, these are all the different ways that you can export your data. I can do a PDF, an image, Excel, CSV. The thing about this is if I do it in CSV or Excel, what you're getting is what you see right here. And then of course you can save this, so I can save it. I can open it. I can do a remote report and a local report. If you're going to do a remote report, I can open it and it's going to actually give me a name and that you could use. I usually copy and paste this one, but I could do a remote report if I wanted to and share and put that in a secure place. And if it's a local report, then it's just going to save it. You're going to be able to save it. Most of the time you're going to do this. You're going to export it. Now, the next thing that you're going to do with this is, let's go back to our presentation. If I wanted to change this, and I want to change it just because I want to show you, these are some scores that I uploaded. So I want to look at a student's, their EOY M-Class data. And when I click apply, look how easy that was to look. I've got this many students at the end of the year that are at benchmark. And then if I wanted to, I could also double click. And when I double click, it's going to show me the students that are at benchmark within Infinite Campus. Within M-Class. Now, when I double click, I'm going to go back to their EOGs. And I'm going to change it back to 3-4 reading. All right, I want to show you something of why your fields are important. If I want to see all the students that are not proficient, if I double click on this, it gives me a list of my students. Now, this is why I did the full name. I did the full name because I wanted these students to only show, I didn't want just their last name because their last name would not give me any, their last name wouldn't tell me really who it is. If I have like 2 Garders or 2 Adams, it would not show me that. Now you are noticing that here, this is not an issue with the actual data that we pulled. This is my testing site because I looked these up. This is my testing site and these are in here twice. And so that's just an issue with the data in my testing site. Now, when I double click, if I want more data on this rather than just their name, I want to see more stuff. What I can do is in my fields, anything that you drag over here is going to show on that column. So I am going to put in my students. I want their race, ethnicity. I want their grad score. And I want their student gender. And I want to do their the absenteeism percentage. Now, notice that I have all these fields in this area. Okay, so anything that I put in this area, if I click apply, when I double click, it's going to actually show all of those fields. So to me, that is a nice way to look at, and actually I probably should have put on my fields, I'm gonna put proficiency, performance level. Performance level is already there. So it's going to show my performance level. There it is, performance level. So here's all my not proficient. Now, what if you wanted to aggregate this by grade, not by grade level, but by ethnicity? All I do is I go back to my fields. I'm going to keep my performance level there, but instead of putting ethnicity up here in report filters, I'm going to drag it down here to rows. And now when I apply, I've got my ethnicity within every ethnicity group I have, whether the student's proficient, not proficient, and so forth. So now I've aggregated it real quickly just looking at the data, and I've done it within Infinite Campus. I haven't had to go out to Excel. I haven't had to create a spreadsheet somewhere to hold the data and aggregate it. I can see it this way. Now, I am going to go on because I'm going to run out of time. I figured I probably would. The next question I want us to do, and I'm going to change this to this. I want to know what is the percentage of the students that were not proficient on their last EOG, all right, as opposed to the other students. So right now, if I click apply, I have a count. And so I got 216, so I've got a good count, but I want to see the percentage. What does that look like if it is a percentage? So when you click on fields, I'm going to change this no longer to a count, but I want to change it now to a percent of the grand total. And I click apply. And now when I look at it, I have almost which puts it in a whole different perspective when you're looking at data. But I have it, almost 66% of our students were not proficient on this assessment score, on this assessment that was given. So again, the way that I did that was I changed the person ID. I changed it down to the grand total of that, of the grand total of the percentage. Excuse me, the percent of the grand total. All right, and on your presentation, if you want to know how to do that, I actually have that, a picture of that on the screen. So let me explain what that picture looks like. I have the fields that you put on. This is the person ID, and there's a percent of the grand total. So that's, you can easily change it from count to percent. The next thing, this is one I want to know, what is the average percentile of current students on all state tests? What is the, so what the question here is, I'm looking at the students' percentiles, and I've got these 7th grade students. Every test that I choose that's in the system, what is the average percentile for all my 7th grade students? Which again is another overall picture of your core instruction with your the data that you have within Infinite Campus. So let's take a look at how you would build that one. And again, I put the pictures on the screen for you in case you need help, but I'm just going to go back and modify what we already had up. Okay. Right. So on this one, I want to, first of all, I'm going to change my fields. And instead of this saying performance level, I'm going to put performance level because I still want it if I double click, but I'm going to put it to test name. So there's my test detail name. The next thing that I want, instead of percent, I want to change it to median. Now, with just a few moves of fields and a few changing of the formula, I now have a different data story, except I'm going to have to change my filter. And I'm going to change my filter name to include anything that says EOG in it. All right, so here's all my EOGs. I want even my 3rd grade retest. And I'm in a testing site, so these are the only tests that I have in there right now. But if I click apply, look, now what I have is I'm sorry, I didn't put the percentile on. I got to change. I don't want the student ID. I want the percentile. So I'm going to find the percentile, test detail percentile. So I've got the test name, the percentile, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that to the median and click apply. And now here's my average percentile of all those tests that I have in the system. If I want to see everything, instead of test name, just select them all, apply, and there's all the tests that I have in the system for this group of students that I have in my middle school right now. Here is their average percentiles on all these test scores, on all these tests. I think that's a pretty powerful dashboard right there. I will say, when the question that you asked earlier was a very good question. If you are going to give a link out to this one, like just taking the link that you have at the top and sharing it, they actually have to build a dashboard. It doesn't give you this. So you would have to do it some other way, probably through this with the remote or the local report. Right. Now I got one more and I got 5 minutes. All right. And this one's probably my favorite. Okay. So talking about putting data stories together. Here is how you could put an entire data story together for all your students and get a grid or an Excel spreadsheet so that you can do some side-by-side comparisons. So I'm going to click on fields and I'm going to leave percentile there, except I'm not going to make it median. I'm going to make it max, because the reason I want it max is, what if a student has done a retest? So I want the max percentile that student scored on that test. I'm going to leave test name here, But I'm going to put a bunch more stuff on because I want to see how many days they've been absent. If they're chronically absent, I want to see all of their early warning scores. And I also want to see, make sure I got all the other demographics that I want. Oh, Lexile. Actually, I'm going to leave Lexile score off. And then what I'm going to do with full name, I'm going to take it from my report filters and I'm now going to put it down to my rows. Now I have a picture of this for you. And when I click apply, this is not something you want to see as a graph. Okay, I didn't intend for it to be a graph, but it is something you want as a grid. Now look at your grid. You actually have this student. Here are all the tests that are in the system that you have, whether it is a formative assessment that you've uploaded or whether it is a state test. You have all of those listed for this student. And I can also come down and I can, if I want to aggregate this by ethnicity, I want to aggregate it by just add their grade levels, then I have all of that listed. And you would have to, now unfortunately, you cannot drag these in order because when I look at this, I'd want to see it in order. Like I wouldn't want grade 3 here. I'd want kindergarten, first, second, third in order. So you may have to, on your grid, you'll probably want to export this one to Excel and clean it up a little bit to put them in the order. But there's your scores with very little work that you had to do on your side, except you just built the pivot table to do it. Now that was a lot. I would like for you, if you don't mind, to before you leave, please, please, please leave your feedback. I hope this helped you in some way in learning how to aggregate the data. Again, one of the best things that you can do is put these data stories together and start looking at the whole picture and looking at things side by side. I am going to show, here is some of the stuff that I just did. I actually created this testing data. I created, instead of someone having to go down to reporting and do data export, cube analysis, and all of that, what I did was I created a custom link. And if I wanted to, I can click to test data. It's going to open up to this where they can do their own aggregation. So they don't have to know all the steps, pull the fields in and just give them the pictures of what to drag on. Or here's one where it is all of the assessment score table, and it's just the download of all the assessment scores. So if they're putting together their own data story, maybe putting it in a Excel spreadsheet using different colors and all that good stuff, here is just a list of every student and all the data that we've pulled from our ad hoc. But they didn't have to go find the ad hoc. They didn't have to do anything else except click the link, and there it is, and it downloads it for them. All right. So if you don't mind, please fill out the feedback. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask, but that is it. And thank you for joining on a late Friday afternoon.
Leanne, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
If you change the output of the fields from your ad hoc, like for your, you rename it, that rename doesn't come over in the cube analysis, correct? It's just what it's called within IC.
Correct.
Okay. And when you have the dashboard or the graph already showing, is there a way that we can add, I forget what they're called, like the number within like a bar graph? Are we able to add that that chart label?
Yes, I totally wish you could do that. That is one thing, and that is one that we could do a feature request. That's what Infinite Campus, I wish everybody would just bombard them with feature requests, because that, and we also cannot, let me show you, we cannot change the colors. And they absolutely love red for some reason in these pivot table colors. And so, that's just one, if you just sort of put in feature requests, because I would love for it to be able to change, because you would think up here in the format cells, I was so excited for that. Format cells does not do that. What format cells does is if you download it as a grid, then that format cells applies to that, but it doesn't apply to what your graph looks like. And same thing with conditional formatting. About the only thing that you can do on I'm sorry, I meant conditional formatting, but on your format cells, you can change your decimal places and stuff like that. But I'm like you sound like what I used to do. I would label my my graphs with all the numbers, because when they're looking at it, and to do that, you really have to just export it and do it in Excel. I will say unfortunately, because I love Excel, but
it'd just be nice if you had it within that screen, so you didn't, because some of our users are the dashboards that we've created through the cube analysis. They like it and they like the freedom of doing it, but they want to be able to personalize it, I guess, which I understand. I would
right.
say that would be a feature, a needed feature as well. Last thing, you said the URL that I was asking about earlier, you said that if that was embedded, they would still have to then create their chart or their grid.
Yes, they would if you do it from here. Now, what I have not tested, because I haven't had time, but what I have not tested, and I plan to test in the next few weeks, is I have not tested this. If with the remote report, if it will pull it up. Actually, I can test it right now. Copy.
Is that just a default, like the name of it worries me, because it's like it kind of looks a little spammy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that one. What that won't do it. I just tested it. It doesn't work.
Okay.
Yeah. And see this, so what I've done in working with districts, and I've done a lot of the MTSS stuff with with the dashboards. And so I will do what you saw in the presentation. I'll give them a picture of what to pull over in their fields. And so say if you want to do this, these are the fields you pull over. And so that tends to be fine. Most everyone can look at the picture and pull things over. They just don't want to get, go to data export, find your filter, click. If you can take out those steps, then the rest of it, they're fine with looking at a picture and pulling your fields over.
Yeah, that's okay. That's true. All right. Thank you.
You are so welcome. I do like the real-time data though. How about everyone? It's nice, isn't it?
It is. It is.
All right. Thank you so much. Y'all have a good weekend.